Oh wow, there's like a it's like a spider web right by my camera. That's a good way to start off a video, right? Hey, hope you're having a Thanksgiving. Those of you in America, I hope you're trudging through the holiday season as we just start off Black Friday and all that other nonsense that I can't stand. I proudly don't spend a single dollar on Black Friday. I do not chip in to the Black Friday hysteria. I don't spend a single dollar, and I hope you don't either. I'm just not going to do it. I know it proves nothing to anybody but myself, but sometimes you got to prove things to yourself, and I don't want to spend any money on the most disgustingly consumerist day of the year, Black Friday. So yeah, I'm not spending a single dollar. Anyway, happy holidays. Did you have a nice Thanksgiving? Mine was pretty good. I just go to my parents' house, the family comes over, we eat, we talk, we laugh, people leave. Pretty standard family fare for me. I have a couple siblings and they have kids, so I'm an uncle, so I hang out with kids and siblings and parents and yeah, it's not bad. It's a good time. It is what it is. Some family members you get along with, some family members you don't get along with quite as much, and that's fine. That's okay. Everyone has differences, and my family definitely has those. But I hope you're having a good Thanksgiving weekend. I am not working today. I'm getting scruffy and furry and hairy and not giving a shit. To me, that's what the holidays are about. Sitting around in your pajamas, scratching yourself, and not actively caring about anything except the length of your beard. And in my case, all I have to do is think really hard and my beard sprouts. That's all it takes for me. I'm a hairy Italian. What do you want from me? Doesn't take much for me to sprout hair. Look at this. I mean, really, nature? You had to give me hair right here? Is it that important that the inside upper humerus ulna, whatever this is, area, right? No, wait, this is your humerus. This is the ulna, right? Is it that important that my upper ulna is, or lower ulna? What is this? I don't know what the hell it is. Is it that important for this to stay warm? Why do I have a patch of fur right there? I have like a beaver pelt right here. What's going on with that? I don't know. Anyway, let's get to the music, shall we? I've rambled about complete nonsensical garbage for a full 2 minutes now, and it's time to move on. Welcome to my channel. This is what you get. This is also what you get. And I know I don't normally talk about music like this, but I don't care. I love this album, and this is kind of like a Thanksgiving tradition. When I go to my parents, my dad loved Neil Young, and he kind of got me onto the Neil Young bug when I was younger, and I still love Neil Young. And when I go to my parents for Thanksgiving, this is kind of like a holiday Thanksgiving tradition. We listen to Harvest Moon because it's one album that we can all agree on. My parents are my parents. They don't listen to music that I deem worthy. It's just my opinion, but they listen to utter dreck. They used to have good taste in music. It's weird. I wonder sometimes when I get older, am I going to have really awful taste in music? But they listen to like the worst shit imaginable now. It's awful. Just like, bad. Well, I'm not going to get into what they listen to. They don't have good taste in music, according to me. But this is one of those few albums that we all kind of coalesce on. We all come together. And this is a beautiful record, and I have a personal tie to this record, and so I thought that might be interesting for people who are watching this. Harvest Moon. I love this album. This is one of Neil Young's few perfect albums, in my opinion. I think he's got a handful of perfect albums. What I love about Neil Young is his complete disinterest in pleasing people. He makes records because he wants to make them, because he's being inspired by something, and he just does it. He just gets on with being Neil Young. He doesn't know how else to be. He just is. And that's what I love about him. Not all of his records work, but so what? You move on to the next thing and you try something else. And Neil Young is unapologetic for this, and I will always love and cherish him for these reasons. And this, he's had what, 60 years, almost 60 years of releasing music with different people, and he's he's produced some of the greatest records of our time in history. One of the great songwriters in history. And I think this is his best album. So when you can consider someone as one of the great artists of the last century, and you have to think about what their best album is, I think that's a big thing to say. I think this is his best album, and that's a big thing to say. Harvest Moon. There's some, a couple of his other records are right up there with this. I think Harvest is right there with it. I think On the Beach is right up there with this. He obviously, after the gold rush, I mean, the guy's got some phenomenally amazing, brilliant albums. But I think this is his best. And I think it's cool because he put this out in the early 90s. I think a lot of people just thought he was done. He had done a number of records in the 80s. I don't think a lot of people were loving. Plenty of people did, but I think maybe a lot of people thought he was on the downswing of his career. Then he put this out. I think this came out in 92, right? I want to say 1992. And he really surprised a lot of people. He surprised me. I remember I was listening to him when I was a kid, and I was kind of over him. I was in the early 90s, I was so deep into techno and house and electro and ambient and electronic music and even punk music and jazz. And my brain was somewhere else. But when this came out, it made me reset. It was like, oh, wow, yeah, Neil Young. He's still here. And this is a great album. So yeah, this album really caught my attention at the time. I thought he was over. I thought he was done. And then this came, and I was like, wow. Now remember, I was like 19 when this came out. So when I thought he was done, I was a kid. My brain was somewhere else. I wasn't focused on Neil Young. I thought he was an old, washed up has-been. And that was my fault for misaligning my own thought process and my own neural pathways when it comes to judging music. This is an example of why it's good to always keep your mind open and not be so linear when it comes to thinking about music and artists. People can be well older than you and continue to put out really inspiring, creative stuff. And Neil Young, what was he in his late 40s when he did this? So yeah, it was a really important step for me, at least, in understanding that it doesn't matter how old you are. If you're passionate about what you do and you love what you do and you have an immense talent, you never get old. You just keep pushing out top shelf product. And that's what Neil Young's entire career has been about. And this is a fantastic album. This is a reissue. I have an original UK press of this. It's not. It doesn't sound great. It's a lot of music compressed onto one side of vinyl, so it's never been a great press. It's not bad. This reissue I just picked up, it sounds pretty good. I think they could have done better. I think if you're going to spend the time to make a reissue and repress a classic album, you need to give it as much attention as you can. And this, sadly, I don't think it got the attention it deserves. It's not a terrible pressing. In fact, the presentation's nice, but the actual records and the sound it's okay. I think it's on par with that original pressing. Again, the original pressing's got a lot of music crammed onto one side of vinyl, so it just kind of, by virtue of that, it's just not going to sound great. They pressed this on 2 records over 3 sides. The 4th side is etched, and I'll show that to you. But I think they could have done a better job with this press. They didn't. They spent a lot of attention on some things and not others. And the things that they didn't spend time on is the actual music, which I think is lame. But I'm happy to have this because I do love this record, and it's a rare time I double dip. And I've been talking a lot about reissues lately, but there are a ton of reissues out. It's mainly what comes out these days are just repressings of older things. I try to talk about new stuff as much as I can, but sometimes the new stuff just isn't there. I talked about a new record earlier this week. Hopefully you watched that video, but yeah, Harvest Moon. And yeah, the physical presentation is very nice. You get a gatefold sleeve. And This is a US press as far as I know, and it's got kind of like this thick grainy stock paper, which is nice. It's like it's sturdy. Aesthetically, this is a very pleasing release, and the records are pressed on clear wax. This is record number 1. You get, let's see, side 1, you get the first 4 tracks. So, you know, they were thoughtful about that. They, instead of cramming all the music onto one record, they spaced it out over 3 sides. You get 3 songs here. So that's cool. I will say that when I played this, I heard a little bit of noise, and the spacing with the songs itself as they spread across the record weren't perfect. I always go on and on about this, and some of you don't think it matters. I think it does. If you're reissuing a record, here's record number 2, by the way. That's side 3. You get the last 3 songs, and then you get an etching on the last side. It's basically the cover of the album, if you can see that. I'm trying to reflect it off the light here. But like, this is a good example of what I'm talking about. This side 3, you've got over 20 minutes of music here. You see all of this dead wax right here. Why not fill that up? You just reissued a track. Take this edge of the music here and space it out to the end of the record. Why would you not do that? Why? You just went to all this trouble to reissue this. Use the whole side of wax. Some of you don't think this matters. It does matter. I don't know why you think it wouldn't matter. I don't know, these people that argue that it doesn't matter. There is an argument to be heard there, but I don't think it's a very strong argument. Space it out, man. Come on, what are we doing here? Oh, and I forgot, aesthetically, if we're talking aesthetics, the original issue did come with an inner sleeve, and this is what the inner sleeve looked like. They presented it as an insert. So you do get the lyrics. The original inner sleeve on the European pressing I have, this is one side of the inner sleeve, and then this is the other side. So they do recreate the inner sleeve. They could have put these records in poly-lined inners. They don't do that. That's another detail that they're not focusing on. It's just cheap ass paper, no poly inner. So that's a fail, in my opinion. So yeah, I hope that makes sense in terms of what my complaints are. Aesthetically, the cover is really nice and the records look cool, but I thought the inner sleeves were lazy. I would have just liked an inner sleeve, not an insert. Give us an inner sleeve and do a better job when you're pressing the actual music. Anyway, that's the actual physicality of the release. The tracks, the tracks. I mean, to me, it's he has a number of albums that I think are perfect, where every song is amazing, and I just named them off a few minutes ago. This is one of those records, man. Particularly side 1, or as it were, on this reissue, like the first 5 songs. Unknown Legend, From Hank to Hendrix, You and Me, Harvest Moon, War of Man. I mean, good Lord, what a start to an album, right? Those first 5 songs, it's mind blowing. Neil Young at his peak in terms of songwriting, just amazing stuff. And this is a record made by a guy who wasn't approaching; he was in his middle age. So he had a lot of things to impart, tons of wisdom to let loose from the top of his mountain. This is his deepest, I think, and arguably one of his most personal records. At a time of his life where he had to leave his youth behind and he was approaching old age. That's what middle age is, right? And in that respect, this is one of his deepest albums. He's trying to let loose of some old demons and wrestle with some new demons and try to move into his older years and forget about all that stuff. That's him coming to terms with all that on this record. Beautiful album. His best for me, Harvest Moon, and I'm glad they reissued this. Now I have a personal connection to this record because this last song, Natural Beauty, this song is a live track, And I was there. I was in attendance of this recording of this song, this very version you hear on this album. I was there. I was at that show. And so that's why, and I went with my dad. So that's why my dad and I have a preponderance of being attracted to this album, and we do it around the holidays. I don't think the concert itself was around the holidays, but this is just something that we share on Thanksgiving. My dad took me to this show, and the show, oh man, if someone correct me if I'm wrong, but I want to say it was January of 1992. My dad and I went to this show. I was there, Natural Beauty. It was recorded at, then it was called the Civic Auditorium in downtown Portland. It is now called the Keller Auditorium. And I've seen some of the greatest concerts of my life at Civic/Keller Auditorium. I saw this. I saw Neil Young. I've seen Kraftwerk there. I've seen Pet Shop Boys there. I saw Sam Kinison there, of all things. I mean, I've seen a lot of different acts there, and it's a great place to see a show. If you're ever in Portland, Oregon, and you want to go see a show and you see it's playing at the Keller Auditorium, I would absolutely recommend you go. It's just a classic old style kind of theater type experience, and the acoustics are excellent. At any rate, yeah, I saw Neil Young at the then called Civic Auditorium, and it was a great show, and I saw this very performance. I saw Neil Young too, in Portland every summer. I think they still do this. Portland has something called the waterfront. The Willamette River separates the east and the west sides of the city. And on the west side of the city and close in downtown Portland, every summer they have something called the Rose Festival. And um, people walk up and down the waterfront. They have live music and they have people sit around and drink and get fat and eat. And back in, I want to say it was 95. I would love it if somebody watching this video by chance was at this performance, but Neil Young gave a free concert at the Waterfront Park in Portland. And I want to say it was the summer of 1995. Does anybody remember this? It was crazy. Neil Young was just there performing for absolutely free. He was up on stage. Of course, there were a couple thousand people there, maybe more. But yeah, he just decided, you know what? I'm going to treat the people of Portland, Oregon to a free show. And he crushed it. He played for like 2 hours, absolutely free. And I don't remember if he was performing in town that night. I don't know what the deal was, but it was an absolutely free concert of Neil Young. And yeah, I want to say it was the summer of 95. I might be wrong about that. If anybody watches this and you were there, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's when it was. It was amazing. Always have always warms my heart to think of that performance. I remember standing maybe 30 or 40 yards off from the stage, and Neil Young was sitting on a chair, hunched over with his guitar, singing into a microphone, talking to the audience, and doing it all for free. It was awesome. Different times, man. But Harvest Moon. This is the time of year where I always crack this out, and I was happy to buy this reissue and bring it over to my parents and listen to this because it's a special album for me. And I'd be interested in hearing where Neil Young fans would rate this in terms of his best albums. That's what's fun about Neil Young. People have different favorite albums. It's all over the place, and that's totally legitimate. I mean, he produces all kinds of different sounds and moods, and well, the dude's been around for almost 60 years. He's got a lot to say, and he likes a lot of different types of music, and he's a fascinating character. I love Neil Young. For me personally, this is his greatest achievement, Harvest Moon. I can't 100% recommend you get this reissue, but unfortunately, I've never seen a vinyl issue of this album that really blew me over. It just hasn't happened yet, which is sad. You can get that original European issue. That one's not that great either. So, for the time being, we have to live with what we're given. This isn't a terrible reissue. I can't fully recommend you pick this up, but maybe if you're a Neil Young aficionado, you probably already have it. But you might want to check this out. It's not a terrible press. It's a great album. You can't have enough copies of this album. So Anyway, on this Black Friday 2023, this is the record I'm listening to, and I wanted to share it with all of you lovely people. I hope you enjoyed it. I will talk to you next time. Bye.